So welcome to the Arizona Parent Family Coalition Civic Leadership. Our learning objectives here are to learn how to advocate for behavioral health rights within the Arizona behavioral health system of care, to gain an understanding of what civic leadership is, how to advocate in person and virtually, and to learn about resources and opportunities to become an advocate at local and state levels and the skills to do so. And also learn about principles of care, individual rights, and how the Arizona State Legislature works. So first of all, I'd like to look at the facts. And if you only remember one statistic today, it's the 50% statistic. And these numbers may have even increased a little bit. I'd like to say maybe decreased, but this is from 2018 with Mental Health America. 50% of mental health conditions begin in childhood. 50% of affected youth become adults who struggle with behavioral issues. 50% of all sick days and 50% of all disability benefits in wealthy countries are caused by mental health conditions. 50% of all US prisoners have one or more diagnosable mental illness when sent to prison. 50% of people with a mental illness that are 14 and older drop out of high school. So that's pretty significant. And when we look at, why are we doing a training like this? We want to be on the front end and prevent this from happening. So if we can get involved, and that's what this training will hopefully give you the confidence and understanding to become involved in some ways. I've got to be figuring out which way to go on this PowerPoint. So, it's worth advocating for recovery and resilience. And just to be on the same page, there are a lot of definitions of recovery out there. But what we're looking at here, just a condensed version, is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, strive to achieve their full potential. And then looking at resilience, we look at that as the ability to adapt to life tasks in the face of social disadvantage or highly adverse conditions, including mental illness and substance use. Recovery is, it's an individual lived experience, and people may have something in common, but they have their own walk on that path. In Arizona, we look at integrated care, an integrated system joining physical and behavioral health services together to treat all aspects of an individual's healthcare needs. This approach uses systematic and cost-effective strategies to provide patient-centered care that improves outcomes. In Arizona, access through the Contracted Access Complete Care, the ACC plans, coordination between physical health and behavioral health provides providers within the same network is contractually required, which can mean better health outcomes for the members. And this is something that we've seen, it benefits patients and families with improved access to care, increased adherence to treatment and follow-up on referrals, increased collaboration among providers, decreased use of unnecessary emergency services, and the development of an integrated, individualized care plan. To give you kind of the lay of the land in Arizona, we have these contractors throughout the state. You've got in Central Arizona, Banner University, Care First, Health Choice, Arizona Complete Health, Mercy Care, United Healthcare, Molina, which used to be Magellan, recently changed its name to Molina. In the southern geographic area, you've got Banner and Arizona Complete Health, United Healthcare, and in the northern part, Care First and Health Choice. And that's just to give you an overview of the entire state. Now, that breaks down into, also we have the tree with the tribal behavioral health information on the left side of this slide. And with the Office of Individual Family Affairs, which is under Access, fondly called OIFA, here's a list of who you can contact if you have any questions or concerns within the health plan related to that's identified there. Looking at adult guiding principles, we look at respect. Persons in recovery choose services and are included in program decisions and program development efforts. We focus on individuals as a whole person while including and/or developing natural supports, empowering individuals to take steps toward independence and allowing risk-taking without fear of failure, integration, collaboration, and participation with community of one's choice, partnership between individuals, staff, and family members, natural supports for shared decision-making with a foundation of trust. Persons in recovery define their own success. Strength-based, flexible, responsive services reflective of an individual's cultural preferences, and having hope being the foundation for the journey towards recovery. And I always like to emphasize how important hope is and how far just a little bit of hope can go. One of the conferences I attended, somebody talked about hope and said, if you put your hand in front of somebody's mouth and you feel air coming and going, there's hope. So that's kind of a measure for hope. Now, looking at the children's system of care principles, and the reason I'm going through these things is when we want to advocate, we want to know what are the rights and what are we advocating for? What should it look like if things are going well? So on the children's system of care, we've got collaboration with the child and family, functional outcomes, collaboration with others, accessible services, best practices, most appropriate setting, timeliness, services tailored to the child and family, stability, respect for the child and family's unique cultural heritage, independence, and connection to natural supports. So it's important to know your healthcare rights, that you have voice, you are your best advocate, you want to speak up to ensure that you receive the medical and behavioral health services that you need. You're a valid part of the service delivery team and an equal partner in the planning of delivery services. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you have a case manager who's saying, well, here's what you need to do. You need to be driving that train. You have that right. They're there to support you, but you have your voice. And the next important thing is you have a choice. You have the right to request covered services and choose where to receive them within your network. You can ask for referrals within the network. You want to be involved. You have the right to be actively involved in the service planning process. The plan focuses on you and your needs. You can ask your team about your covered service options. It's important that they explain to you what the array of services is, what is available to you. And if you feel there's something you need that you're not hearing about, ask. And it may be something that is covered and they simply forgot to mention. You can view all of the Access OIFA one-pagers on rights. This is a really good place to go. This link on the bottom of this slide, and you can take a picture of it. If there are people who are going to want a copy of this, you can email me and let me know, and I could send you the PowerPoint afterwards. But there are a lot of one-pagers. They're really concise and go into the detail of what your rights are. We do have a lot of gaps, unfortunately, in the system, and these are just some areas where people do want to advocate and are advocating. One of them is housing. Low-income supported housing for mentally ill population in Arizona has a waiting list between 2,800 and 3,000 people. So there's, there's a huge need there for different kinds of housing. Meeting needs of individuals living with both autism spectrum disorders and serious mental illness. The serious mental illness acronym, a lot of you may be familiar with, is SMI. I like to say that also means seriously mentally intelligent, because often it definitely is, rides right along with that. Looking at racial disparity among healthcare providers, a lot of people go in for services and they want to see someone who looks like them, has the same color of skin, has some similar cultural background, and we are not finding that across the board. So also systemic racism and healthcare disparities in integrated healthcare, particularly in accessing healthcare services in Native American, African American, Hispanic, and Pacific Islander communities. Another area that we have gaps in is funding. Community behavioral health providers continue to have to do more with less. And now that's compounded by workforce shortages due to COVID. If anybody has any questions or comments, go ahead and use the chat box. Candy is monitoring that. So looking at civic leadership, we have attributes of meaningful involvement. A lot of that has to do with access, voice, and ownership. Based on what families have shared, successful outcomes were highly correlated with strategies that provided clients with feelings of access, voice, and ownership. This was regardless of the type of service being provided. And it needs to occur in that order. And it can start at the individual level, and it can take all the way up to the system and a national level. So attributes, get this right again, meaningful involvement. So starting with access. Individuals have access to the decision-making process. They have a seat at the table when the real work of planning begins to take place. So having a seat at the table, you could be on a committee. This can start just being in your own, if you're receiving services, developing your treatment plan and having access to that process, which can't be done without you. And then having a voice. I love this picture. This kid has really got it going on. But knowing that individuals have an opportunity to present their perspectives and to be heard during the planning process, to have active voice in developing service plans. The next thing then would be ownership. Individuals feel a thorough sense of commitment to the plan of care, identify with it, and believe it to be worthwhile. So all important pieces, and we look at ownership existing when the client felt a sense of commitment to the course of action which was developed through the planning process. They identified with it, believed it to be worthwhile. An example would be families are viewed as active partners with professionals in selecting plans of care. Shared feelings is something that we have. All parties can feel vulnerable. Nobody wants to feel powerless or manipulated. Everyone wants to and needs to feel valued, respected, and competent. All parties wish for positive outcomes for family, youth, and peers. We don't always see this, unfortunately. And I'm sure that a few of you could share stories where you did not feel valued or respected in a meeting, but this is things that we want to advocate for and be at the table to promote positive change. So when we look at civic leadership, here are some aspects to consider. Who am I in this work? Am I a formal or a natural leader? You have formal leaders that they're assigned, they have a job and they follow a very structured rules, and you will do this and you'll do it by this time and here's how you'll do it. Then you have a natural leader that really has understanding and communication and relationship with the people. Now you can have a blend, but just thinking where do you fall in and what works for you? How will you use the power of leadership to move the system forward? What are your values and what are your attitudes? Identify and acknowledge the isms in myself, and then address the isms. Regulate the distress and give the work back to the people. Delegate. So looking at attributes: teamwork, personal identity, perspective, and views of the system. Leadership attributes are the inner or personal qualities that constitute effective leadership. These attributes would include things like values, traits, behaviors, and skills. Examples would be being supportive, charismatic, inspiring, encouraging, cooperative, helpful, empowering, collaborative, persistent, and responsible. So an important thing to remember is it's about the whole. When you're on a committee, you're not there for you. You're there for everyone that is together on that. You're part of something that's larger than yourself. And respectful unity is a real key. So, on the diagram, you see committee and community, and in the middle there is you with information. So it flows from the community to you, to the committee, to the board, or from the committee or the board to you, and then back to the community. So this is, I gotta say, this is one of my favorite slides because of this character. And I thank Deb Jorgensen for finding this character. And I think she's the one who found him. But this is a fox that lives in, I believe, the Sahara Desert. Big ears, small mouth, and wide eyes. So why is this so important to have big ears, a small mouth, and wide eyes in a leadership role or in a member of a committee role? Anybody want to chirp in? Why would these things be important? Everybody's
I believe that it's important to have big ears so that you can hear and actively listen. There's a difference between, that's why the ears are bigger, because you're actively listening. Eyes, so that you can see what is going on, not only what is being said, but to watch the body language of the audience. And so that when you're in a lead position, you know how to address that audience to be most effective for those that you're advocating for.
great. Thank you, Louis, for sharing that. And you hit right on with it. And then we have the small mouth to do less talking.
Right.
To do more listening.
More listening. And I think from my practice, from my experience anyway, anecdotally, if one thing I've learned as I age, it is a wiser man that says less, but impacts more.
Well stated. Thank you for sharing that, Louis. All right. So this is the picture of the animal is a phonetic fox. Right here. So in advocating effectively, it's important to believe in yourself, to know your rights, decide what you want, get the facts, and strategize. When we look at believing in yourself, knowing that you are unique, you're valuable, and you're worth the effort it takes to advocate for yourself and your rights. And knowing your rights, we have the Arizona Center for Disability Law. And I mentioned the Access one-pagers on rights. Deciding what you want, clarifying what you need will help you set goals to be clear to others. This could be with your service provider, your health insurance, an employer or school, any different arena. And getting the facts, you just want to make sure you have the information, that the information you have is accurate. So you want to do your homework ahead of time. And strategizing, sometimes it's helpful to write down what you think will work and the steps necessary to achieve your goals. Ask supporters for suggestions and get feedback on your ideas. You want to gather support, work together with friends, help each other, be mutually supportive, join groups with common concerns. You want to target your efforts, ask yourself what person or organization can take action on the issues that you've identified. And talk directly with them. It might take a few phone calls, it might take a few emails, but work at it. You want to express yourself clearly. Good communication skills are necessary for effective self-advocacy. Learn to say directly what you mean and be brief and stick to the point. People don't want to hear somebody going on and on and on, then they kind of lose focus and don't know what it's about. So don't allow yourself to ramble with unimportant points. You want to assert yourself calmly. If someone gives you a hard time, stay cool. Don't lose your temper or lash out at the person, their character, or the organization. Instead, speak out and listen. Be firm and persistent. Don't give up. Keep after what you want. Always follow through with what you say. Commit yourself to getting what you need for yourself. Wrong one again. You want to promote understanding, and this is where listening is so important. A great leader will listen more than they speak. By listening, you're showing respect. That's important in building relationships. You're also building your knowledge base, and that will help generate ideas. A leader is always learning new things. This is how they grow. And through listening, you can build loyalty among your partners. So, you can just take a minute and consider, can you think of a leader that you respect who is a good listener? And how do they make you feel? There's a phrase out there that says, you may not remember what someone said, but you remember how it made you feel. So it's important to seek first to understand rather than to be understood. Online meeting etiquette. I think that everybody here on this Zoom has familiarity with these, or perhaps not, but it's important to just recognize what online meeting etiquette is. Joining early, making sure you're set up right, dress appropriately, be aware of your surroundings, mute your microphone when you're not talking, stay seated and be present. If you need to get up and take a break, stretch, use the restroom, get a drink of water, do that. Take care of yourself. But you want to be present and seated for most of the meeting. You want to minimize distractions. That'd be like rustling paper, having people move around behind you. You want to give grace. You want to be patient with participants and allow some grace to any miscommunications, because it can be harder to communicate. We're not all seeing each other, and perhaps we're missing the body language. So just being patient to allow for clarification on any miscommunication, and then plan for an effective wrap up. End with a quick recap and provide decisions made and actions agreed upon. So when we go into speaking to policymakers or committees, things to look at are telling your story. And this is something that we go into a whole lot of detail with the 4-hour trainings. We don't have time for that here. So, you know, we're not going to do a breakout session, but it's important that you understand about telling your story, having an elevator speech, which is very brief, and knowing how to prepare for meetings and stress management. So sharing our stories as advocates, we'd start with an introduction, what happened to me, what helped me, how I'm different today, what is the need or the problem, and what will help others, and then what is my ask? What am I asking for? If it's to a senator or a committee. So again, you know, this is a real brief view. Some of you have had peer support training. You've been trained in telling your story and sharing with others. Those of you that haven't and think that you'd like to learn more about becoming an advocate, the other trainings, like I said, have breakout sessions and where you practice and you learn really how to tell your story. How to prepare for meetings. You know, what skills do you use to feel prepared and calm and confident? You know, there are a couple of them listed here: deep breathing, positive self-talk, progressive muscle relaxation, knowing that in advance your technology is all checked out okay. Talked a minute ago about taking, you know, self-care and how important that is. We go into this more also in the other trainings and share what our own ideas are. We can always learn from each other. One size may not fit all, but there are a lot of things that help us in our own self-care that we learn from others. So now we're going to get into a little bit of the more the dry part of this, where understanding committee use of Robert's rules. A lot of committees follow what's called Robert's rules. And if you haven't been on a committee, this is new to you. And if you have, it may not be new to you. I've done this training with some people who said, oh, well, we didn't do it all like that. And there are some people who will have this list in their office just to know, okay, if I'm following Robert's rules, this is what it is. But not all committees follow this verbatim. And if you're on committees, I don't want you to be intimidated by this. Everybody makes things work how they do best for them. But as a part of this training, it's important to know what you could come across so you wouldn't be blindsided or surprised by it. So a little background on Henry Robert. He was a US general and engineer. The first edition of this was published in 1876. And it is still the most popular authority with over 5 million copies in print. And what he says is, where there is no law, but every man does what is right in his own eyes, there is the least of real liberty. So parliamentary procedure is a set of rules for conduct at meetings that allows everyone to be heard and make decisions without confusion. Why is this important? It's a time-tested method of conducting business at meetings and public gatherings. It can be adapted to fit the needs of any organization. Today, this has been revised. It's the basic handbook of operation for most clubs, organizations, and other groups. So it's just important to be familiar with these basic rules. Oh, I'm going the wrong way again. So here they are. I had you sitting on the edge of the seat waiting to find out what they were. So first it would be a call to order. Second would be roll call of members present, and then the reading of minutes of the last meeting, then the officers' reports, committee reports, special orders, any important business previously designated for consideration at this meeting, any unfinished business, new business, announcements, and adjournment. So that's packed pretty full, and that's the official procedure for Robert's rules. So voting on a motion, the method of vote on any motion would depend on the situation and the bylaws of that particular organization. But there are 5 methods used to vote by most organizations, and they are by voice, by roll call, by general consent, by division, or by ballot. So I think that some of this would be kind of self-evident, but when you look at number 4, by division, that is a slight verification of a voice vote. It doesn't require a count unless the chairman so desires. And for this, people could raise their hands or stand. And by ballot is when you want secrecy, when you don't want everyone to know how everybody's voting. So looking at the proper use of this, it will only work right if you use it properly. Allow motions that are in order, have members obtain the floor properly, speak clearly and concisely, and obey the rules of debates. But the most important thing here is to be courteous. When you want to get your point across, they have what's called the point of order. This brings attention to an infraction of the rules of order, and it must be raised immediately after an error is made. You have what's called the point of privilege. That pertains to noise or personal comfort. And then you have where you may interrupt only if necessary. And this is called a POP, short for point of privilege. And you'd use that request to leave the room for any reason, or upon return, someone would motion to admit all members. This is stricter than most of the meetings that most of us would be attending. But if you were to find yourself in a meeting where these things were going on, due to this training, you'd have an understanding of why they are doing it, what it means. So asking questions. In a parliamentary inquiry, a question directed to the chair to obtain information on a matter of parliamentary law or other rules. Point of information or request is directed to the chair or through the chair to another person for information relevant to the business at hand, and that is abbreviated as POI. When you look at roll call voting, there are 3 responses, and it could be for, against, or abstain. And members may abstain only if there is a distinct conflict of interest. Sometimes people will find that there is a conflict of interest and they need to recuse themselves from participating in a vote, and just let that be known. You don't have to be removed from a committee, but you would have to take into consideration that perhaps one item that was being voted on, if it was a conflict of interest for you. So what committee is the right one for you? To figure that out, you know where your passion is, but you'll want to do some research and review that committee's values, their objectives, and see if they align with yours. It may be the same topic, but they may have a different approach. Go ahead and attend a meeting. If you can attend without joining the meeting, that's going to give you firsthand experience. Is this a group that I can work with or not? And then you can review meeting minutes and agendas. Are they moving at your speed? Do they cover issues that are important to you? You want to do your research. So for effective onboarding, does the committee have a formal training? And if they do, take advantage of it. Do your homework, review their guidelines, their policies, their procedures, their bylaws, and ask for prior meeting minutes and agendas so that you're not walking in cold. And a mentor, this is huge. Find someone who can assist you, someone that you can build a relationship with, or maybe already have one with that person. Maybe they dragged you in and said, I want you to be on this committee. But have a mentor that you can talk with and ask questions to, and let them be kind of a coach for you. And also really important here, OIFA, the Office of Individual Family Affairs. Reach out to your OIFA plan or your Regional Behavioral Health Authority plans administrator, because their job is to support peers and family members that sit on committees. Some helpful tools here. I'm not going to take you to these websites, but this is where you can look deeper into these things. And again, on the other trainings, we go farther into these. So SAMHSA, the Access Contractor Operations Manual, and Robert's Rules, which you just had a good overview of. So what are the coalitions and committees in Arizona? What do we have going on here? There is a, for peer participation and recruitment lists, I always send people to the Mental Health Resources website. If we have time after the training, we can pull that up for you to take a look at it. It lists, I'm going to ask Candy, how many resources do you think we have on that now?
Around 1,000.
Around 1,000. So when you see what the resources are, maybe they have committees, or maybe they're an organization that you could do some volunteer work for, and take a look at that. So, but you want to know, what is your why? What coalition do you want to volunteer for? What is the best fit for you? What type of volunteer work, if that's what you want, do you want to do? Where is your passion? What are your skills? And how much time do you have for volunteering? You don't want to set yourself up for anything other than success. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. So, you know, take that all into consideration. Okay, I went the wrong way again. Oh, no, I went the right way. Okay. So here are a couple of committees, coalitions to consider: the Arizona Peer and Family Coalition, the Northern Arizona Peer and Family Coalition, which is an affiliate of the APFC, NAMI, National Alliance for Mentally Ill. Every location in Arizona has chapters. Well, there are chapters throughout Arizona. I don't know how close there would be one for you, but that's a really good place to go. Family Involvement Center, My Kid, and Mental Health America. These are just a few, but you know, follow your passion in determining what you would want to join. Looking at the state legislature, this takes us into a little different level, where we're going on to the governmental aspect of things. And our Arizona legislature consists of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Each legislature lasts 2 years, consists of a first regular session and a second regular session. Regular sessions begin in the second Monday in January and generally last 100 days. Either the legislature or the governor may call special sessions. And then in that, they would only consider matters specified by the governor. There's no such limitation for special sessions called by the legislature. Something I found interesting is that, you know, a legislator makes $24,000 a year, but they also get a per diem. So for the 2021 GSA per diem, the rates were $151 a day. So if they're working 100 days, you can multiply that 151 and see that they're making some money there. And also, if they had to do lodging and meals, they'd get $96 for lodging, $55 for meals and incidental expenses. And these are our taxpayer dollars. We're paying them. So we want them to do things that are going to be beneficial for us and for our communities. The basics of the state Senate is that you've got the upper house of the legislature made up of 30 senators, one from each of the districts. The term is 2 years. It's a part of the branch of the government. The Senate, as a part of the legislative branch of government, the Senate can draft, introduce, and vote on legislation. The Senate also can enact laws and propose amendments to the state constitution to be referred to voters. Along with the House, the Senate approves the state's annual budget. The Senate can confirm or reject any gubernatorial appointee for the executive branch offices. And in addition, the Senate also has powers of trial and conviction to remove elected offices by impeaching by the House, acting as a jury. The Arizona House of Representatives, on the other hand, is the lower house of the legislature, made up of 60 representatives, 2 from each of the 30 legislative districts. The term is also 2 years. They can draft, introduce, and vote on legislation. They can enact laws and propose amendments to the state constitution to be referred to voters. Along with the Senate, they can approve the state annual budget, and the House holds the sole power for impeachment of elected officials, starts the impeachment process, but defers to the Senate for any trial or conviction. I know this is a lot of dry material, but it's important to have some understanding of how the government works and what it's made up of. So bills are prepared for introduction by the Arizona Legislative Council, who may also draft the bill upon request. Bills are drafted in accordance with the Arizona Legislative Bill Drafting Manual, which is available on the council's website. If you want to do some reading there, it's available. It's a joint legislative committee with members from both the House and the Senate and a professional staff. So looking at introducing a bill, because we see bills going through that have to do with behavioral health. And I think that just to get an idea of how this works, the Arizona Senate. So introducing a bill, there's a whole process here. And I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over some of this for how the bills are introduced, but knowing that the numbering in the Senate starts at 1001 and the number for the House bill start at 2001. Once introduced, they're put on the calendar for required readings of 3 times on 3 separate days. They can be referred to committee in the House at the first reading. In the Senate, they can be referred to a committee either at the second, either first or second reading. The committee system basically is complicated. There are a number of committees, and it's hard for us to be on these committees because basically you have to be a legislator to be on a committee. Sometimes they have outside committees. That doesn't happen very often, and that would be our opportunity to be on an actual committee. But when committees meet, we could have an opportunity to speak. I'll get to that in a few minutes. They go by a little different set of rules. They follow Mason's rules, and there is some similarity and some differences between that and the Roberts rules. I'm going to skip over this in the sake of time, but just to let you know, it is very formal. And then there's the different committees, the standing committees. Committee meetings can be open to the public and the press. With subcommittees, this is where any committee chairman can appoint a subcommittee consisting of members to deliberate on a bill and report back to the full committee. This is what I wanted to get to, is the request to speak. This is where we have power. There's a request to speak program designed to let us, you can register an opinion on bills. You can request to speak to a committee. It can be complicated to create your own account. However, we do have a civic engagement group that will sign you up. And this is where I'm going to go to a video. It's about a 2-minute video. I'm gonna let Candy bring this up because this is complicated.
Welcome. This video will help you learn to use Arizona's Request to Speak system, or RTS. RTS is the Arizona legislature's own tool for tracking bills. It's an easy way to get involved in state politics, to stay informed on proposed legislation, and to give state legislators your feedback. Despite the name, you don't actually have to speak in person. Once you sign up, you can be an armchair activist and weigh in on bills from the comfort of your own home. The first step is to get signed up. RTS accounts can only be set up at the Capitol. If you don't have an account, visit cebv.us/RTS, and Civic Engagement Beyond Voting will create one for you. Once you have an account, you'll need to sign in. Go to apps.azleg.gov, click sign on in the upper right corner, and enter your email and password. The system has two parts: Request to Speak and Bill Status Inquiry. You can always find these two options under Applications in the upper right corner next to your name. The black column on the left tells you where you are. Bill Status Inquiry is handy for figuring out the status of a bill. Choose Agendas to get a list of bills on a particular committee's agenda or calendar to see which bills are coming up for a group vote, or use the search function to get other types of lists: bills sponsored by a certain lawmaker, bills matching a certain keyword, or bills that have been signed by the governor and are headed to become law. But since we want to use RTS today, let's choose the Request to Speak side. To enter your RTS position on a bill, look in the black bar to the left and select New Request. This brings up a new screen. Type the bill number in the box and select Search. You don't have to include SV or HB, just the numbers. This will show your selected bill. Remember, this system is used to comment on bills being heard in committee, so bills will only show up here if they are on a committee agenda. If the bill doesn't show up, it means it either hasn't been scheduled to be heard by a committee or its committee hearing has passed. This bill has a committee hearing coming up. You can see the committee name, where that committee meets, and the date the bill will be on the agenda. Click Add Request. Select whether you're for, neutral, or against. We're for this bill. Then answer the question, do you want to speak? This is asking whether you plan to attend the committee hearing and speak in person about the bill. Choose yes, no, or if necessary. You must answer this question or your RTS may not go through. If you'd like, you can also add a public comment on the bill to explain your position. Legislators sometimes read these comments out loud during committee hearings, so don't type anything here that you wouldn't also say in other very public spaces, like in a courtroom or while talking to a reporter. Want to keep track of what you said for later? The RTS system has a place for you to make notes for yourself, personal comments that your lawmakers can't see. Making personal comments is helpful because a bill that becomes law will move through multiple committees, and the public comments you make will stay with this specific committee. If you choose to RTS on a bill again later for another committee, these personal comments can help you keep track of what you've said. Once you're done writing your comments, just hit submit and you're done. You can update or delete your requests from this screen. If you want to add another request for a different bill, just go back and select New Request, then follow these steps again. The RTS system can also generate notifications for you when bills move. Use the Personal Progress link on the Bill Status Inquiry side to create your own lists. For example, education. That way, the next time you log in, you'll be able to see at a glance what's changed for the bills you care about. Before you leave RTS, make sure you are identified as a registered voter. We can't do this step for you, so this is especially important if it's your first time using Request to Speak. Go to Account Management and click Update Personal Information. Look for the question, do you wish to identify as an Arizona registered voter? And click Yes. You'll need your date of birth and another piece of information, which can be your voter ID, your Arizona driver's license number, or the last 4 digits of your social security number. If you'd like to learn more about Arizona's Request to Speak system, visit cebv.us. There, you can request an RTS account, learn how to track bills, sign up for informative emails during session, attend in-person trainings, and so much more. The Arizona State Constitution says all political power is inherent in the people. Using RTS is just one of many ways that we as citizens can ask our elected officials to honor the wishes of us, their constituents. Thanks for using your voice. It matters.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Candy. That video was jam-packed full of information and step-by-step, really, how to do that whole process without having to go personally in person to the kiosk, either in Tucson or Phoenix, to sign up. I did this with them. They asked for the minimal personal information. And then there's a point where you have to go in yourself because it's nothing that they can have access to. But it really is something that I would encourage you to take a look back at that website and the www.cebv.us/RTS. And you can watch that video as many times as you want to, because this is where we have power. In creating your own account, see that, I've got to go this way. You go in the right direction here. So once you're signed in, then in accordance with the Senate Rule 26A, any person desiring to be heard concerning legislation can email that request in with at least 24 hours in advance, excluding weekends and holidays. The request must state the bill and the bill that you desire to present arguments on and who you are representing. Could be yourself, could be an organization. Timely requests will receive a response and include a link to participate in that committee remotely. People desiring to testify remotely would indicate that the participation is remote and within the comments of the RTS system. To locate agendas for the RTS manual, you can go to this other website, azledge.gov, request to speak agenda search. So for answers frequently asked questions regarding legislators, you can go to this https www.azleg.gov/fact for answers to determine your legislator and your district, how to obtain a list of legislators' email addresses. There's bill questions and standing and interim committee questions. Some examples of legislative priority topic examples that we have interest in and do advocate for through the Arizona Peer and Family Coalition. Funding for health and behavioral health care, housing, children and transition aged youth, transportation. There are a couple of bills that have gone through when we first started this training last March. SB 1029, Psychiatric Security Review Board and hearings. You can look these up and get details on them. The SB 1030, Guilty Accepted Insane and Court Jurisdiction. SB 1059 on mental disorders, considerations and involuntary treatment. Just to let you know, these things are they're happening, and you can be involved and be a part of advocating for how you want to see things go.
There is a quick question. They wanted to know how long your RTS account is valid for.
Ooh, that I haven't seen that question before. That is an excellent question, and I don't have the answer. I don't know.
I think it's indefinitely, but I don't know why I think that.
Yeah, I think that I would go along with Candy. Why don't you open one up and a year from now, contact me and let me know if it's still open. Be involved, participate and communicate. Get to know who your representatives are and let them get to know who you are. Let them know the issues that you're interested in. Know what issues are being addressed and provide input through the process before they're presented as a bill. You want to know when it's in the committee. Follow bills of interest being drafted and provide your input. Request to speak in committees. And now you know how to do that. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And that we have from Margaret Mead. So again, join a coalition, organization of your choice. Provide your legislators with your input on bills, participate and advocate. That is the conclusion of this mini training. And I know Hey, it's a lot of information. Are there any additional questions or comments?
I've got one. Can I ask it?
Pardon me, Chaz?
I was going to say, can I ask it?
Yes,
So it's going to be on YouTube, right?
yes.
Okay, sorry. One thing you might want to do is captions or provide subtitles for it so that way it's more accessible in the future and such to other people what are going to watch it or take the training. And so that way it's not reliant on an ASL interpreter and everyone gets the same exact equal amount of training.
Excellent point. We will look into that. We'll take a deeper dive in that to have the closed captions as we go. Thank you.
I also had a question on technology integration. And the reason I'm bringing this up is with COVID and the original first slides that you had on mental health issues, 50% of folks with mental health issues in the state of Arizona, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, please. But my question is, and concern as a future professional social worker is this. We have technology nowadays where we're on Zoom, we're on other platforms. So my hope for the future is that one way we will probably have another pandemic of some type down the road. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be, more than likely. So one thing that I've been thinking about, especially for the most vulnerable individuals in our society, is how can we ensure that those individuals and families still have the adequate resources and connection during times of crisis, whether that be whatever crisis there might be. And so one of the infrastructure things that I would like to see within the Biden administration's, and I don't know how much sway we have, infrastructure bill for soft infrastructure is creating more access to technology integration. So telehealth is part of that, but not the whole picture. And ways with still respecting privacy and the person's individual rights and liberties, but to make sure that they're connected. So that's one of my, I don't know if I'm making myself clear enough, but the technology allowing us to connect more interconnectively with technology, and not only relying on government, but creating a public-private partnership.
You bring up a really excellent point, Louis, and especially with our rural communities, this is where we see healthcare disparity. Side note, those statistics were national. They were not Arizona, they were national. It's through America, Mental Health America, but with the 50%. But back to your point about connectivity, there are programs that are being looked at, and there have been parts of the country that have been resourceful in setting up and providing laptop and internet connectivity for people that otherwise didn't have it, couldn't afford it. But this is as moving forward with possibilities of, as you mentioned, there could be another pandemic. I think that this train is on the track for connectivity and recognizing the pockets that are not reached and the disparity that continues, because as telehealth grows, you've got to have it available to everybody. You want to reach everybody everywhere. Here in Arizona, we've got the reservations. We've got pockets everywhere. Maria, I don't know if you want to say anything about this, because you're involved with Northern Arizona, where we have some of the communities that don't have the internet access.
I also put the tribal nations in. I had this question in the chat So I wanted to make sure that it was addressed because it wasn't addressed through the chat. So, because I think it's really important. So again, tribal also. And then the other question I have is, or not, follow-up would be, how can we advocate for folks that one thing that I saw during the pandemic, obviously, was I came up with this thought of, how about people in assisted living? How about people in nursing homes? How are they being monitored? And not to say that a staff, the people are going to do quote unquote bad things, but we lost connection with them as far as there was a definite disconnect. Families were taken out of that facility. They weren't allowed to go into the facilities. So there weren't eyes and ears to oversee the staff. And so my question is, for future, follow-up question is, having a disability of my own, I happen to have a developmental disability. I am fortunate, I believe, that I am able to articulate. Not everyone can articulate. And so I am concerned as a ally and peer that we must protect the most vulnerable. And we need to think about this, I think, from the standpoint of the pandemic as an opportunity for improvement of process.
Absolutely. You bring up great points, and this is where, looking for the avenues that exist, or do we need to create avenues for oversight and development?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm glad you're here because it really does concern me that again, that the pandemic to me exposed some things that we really never really thought about before, because we were just going along as a society. And so I really want to try to help us make sure that everyone is safe when they can't advocate for themselves.
Excellent points. Anyone else want to weigh in on this, or comments or questions?
Sorry. One idea that I had when I was watching the pandemic happen was to regulate communications and telecom like we do water and power, in terms of being an absolute essential to life, because that's exactly what it was during the pandemic. So looking at that particular resource in the same way that we do water and electricity as being that vital to our livelihood may at least ramp up the importance of it.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Chaz. Great way to look at it. Because we're talking about lifelines.
Yeah.
Lori, thank you. I wanted to say that there is a lot of focus right now. Microphone here. There's a lot of focus right now with areas where there is a tremendous lack of telecommunications, ability. I know I've spoken with several community folks and also attended, a lot of veteran meetings where areas like Concho, Arizona, and Seligman, Ash Fork. I will say that it does make a difference to contact your senators, your legislators. Right now, Senator Sinema was successful in working with the FCC and getting a cell tower put up in the Concho area so that veterans and anybody who lives out there can connect on on the internet and also have a cell phone that works. Recently, she reached out to find out what other communities might be, might really need that intervention or that advocacy. And we had our provider in Williams who again in Seligman and Ashbrook, they're really lacking in resources. And so she is looking at this very closely, and I think that again, letting our legislators and our senators know what is lacking, what needs to be addressed, that is a key and critical component. So just wanted to give you that little bit of a heads up there.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I am thrilled to hear that cell tower going up there. That's fantastic. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the training? I want to let you know that this 1 hour condensed training is available, or the other trainings. If you have a group of people that you would like this to be presented for by Zoom, contact me. We'll coordinate, set it up. If you're interested in the civic leadership basic training, the first 4 hour training, or the CLD 2.0 as we call it, let me know. We can coordinate with you if you have a group of people that you would like to do that with. And if you'd like to be added to the email list, you can put your email in the chat, your name and email in the chat. If you don't want other people to see it, you can direct it directly to Candy, I think. Yeah, okay. I just so appreciate everybody that came today, your input. I know it was a whole lot of information, but information is power. And this is, we're in this together. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Candy moves to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay,
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.